Hi there, welcome to Kneppy Invest and welcome to a standalone answer and question video. This comes from Chup Liquid 8968 who asks, how do you find potential companies? A really interesting question, which I'll get into in a second. But Chap Liquid mostly finds companies through word of mouth. That is an interesting way to find companies on the ASX, or maybe this is just not the ASX. This could be a companies listed on any exchange in the world, or maybe this is just including private companies as well. How do you find potential companies? So I'm assuming this is related to the ASX. I could expand it to include companies listed on New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, or any foreign exchanges. That is subtly different, but I am changing that, particularly when it comes to USA. Okay, so how do I find potential companies? When I first started investing on the ASX, I knew little. I didn't know many companies at all. In fact, I would say, as a wild guess, I probably knew about 1% to 2% of companies on the ASX. I knew CBA, BHP, maybe a few of the other banks, JB Hi-Fi. That's about it. That's about it. My knowledge base was really small when it came to companies on the ASX. I have expanded that knowledge base quite significantly over the past 15 years using various methods. In particular, my favorite way to find companies, and I'll talk about that in a second. Now, before I talk about that, when it comes to international exchanges, apart from maybe the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ right now, is the way I find potential companies is simply, I've heard of that company before. That's it. I've heard of that company, like Lindt Chocolate or Toyota. So companies that are selling something that is ubiquitous in the world, because I've done very little research when it comes to companies throughout the world. Now, when it comes to NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, I could have said the same thing up until quite a few months ago, when I've started to use screeners, looking at companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, and I'm finding companies that way, just using screeners and filters. So I'm finding that has been very useful so far. But what about the ASX? How did I find and still find potential companies? So let's delve into this or that right now. So what I'm going to do now is go through the 4 different ways I typically use to find companies on the ASX. And one of these stands out from all the rest. And that way is ASX announcements. And I would say I find 90% of my ideas or companies just through ASX announcements. Now, when I started investing way back, just after the GFC, I did not know ASX announcements existed. I can't remember how I discovered that companies release announcements every single day, which is odd because this is something I do every single day now, is I go through ASX announcements. So I just find interesting titled announcements. And a lot of times I will see interesting title announcements from companies I never knew existed or companies I don't know much about. And that is how I learn about companies, just going through announcements they release on occasion. For instance, trading updates, upgrades, financial results from companies. Sometimes I'll have a look at Appendix 4C and discover this particular company is now operating cash flow positive. I'm going to have to delve a little bit deeper into this company because it might be a buy for me. So I would say 90% of my ideas, maybe even more, come simply through ASX announcements. And I do this every day, go through not every announcement, but I do have a filter that I use, and I use that filter to go through ASX announcements, and I'm looking for the most powerful type of announcements. For instance, trading updates, profit upgrades, financial results. Now, there are a few other ways I get ideas, and one of those ways is from you. I have found this over the last few years that you will bring up an idea, bring up the ticker code of a company that I don't know much about, and then I have a brief look at that company and go, oh, this company looks okay, looks way more interesting than I would have thought otherwise. So you have been the inspiration for me to discover companies. The most recent one was IVE Group. I thought IVE Group was a really crappy company, and then I had a closer look, and I was a little bit surprised that it's not as crappy as I thought it would be. So I would say maybe 5%, probably less than that. I'd say a few percent of my ideas, or a few percent of companies I have discovered come through your comments. Okay, so what other ways do I use to find potential companies? Articles. Yeah, I still read articles. Now, this way I use way less than I used to, because a lot of these articles really feature companies I know already a lot about. Very rarely do I see an article with a company mentioned that I have not yet heard about. It's very rare that happens, but I still go through articles like Livewire. I don't really go through Motley Fool. The only reason I go through Motley Fool is because I do use some of those articles as ideas for article reaction, but I do like Livewire. So that is one thing I still do, is read articles, getting ideas from that. And I do find that can be a good way to get ideas, particularly if you are a new investor. And the last way, maybe not the only last way, maybe there's other ways I have used, but they're much less common than these four, is Ausbiz. Now, I'm using or watching Ausbiz much less these days than I used to. So it used to be the Sky Financial Channel with Your Money, Your Call. Then I transitioned to Ausbiz because it seemed like all the experts transitioned to Ausbiz. So I do watch Ausbiz on occasion, and you do get ideas. It's fairly similar to articles, or then articles, but just slightly different. And also, it's not called Your Money, Your Call, whatever it's called these days. Anyway, so Ausbiz, do get some ideas from that, but way less, significantly less than just looking at ASX announcements. Now, what I'm going to do now is just show you some of these ASX announcements, comments, articles, Livewire, and Ausbiz. Okay, so this is ASX announcements. This is actually the ASX announcement page. I started actually, when I discovered ASX announcements, this is what I used most of the time initially, but I very rarely go to this now because there is no filter when it comes to ASX announcements, and filtering is really important for me. So all ASX announcements are released via ASX website, and you can just look at these. Some announcements are marked price sensitive with this dollar sign. Most of the articles are not. I tend to focus on price sensitive announcements, but some of the price sensitive announcements, in fact, I'd say the majority of price sensitive announcements, are not the sort of announcements that I am drawn to. For instance, GDF released a price sensitive announcement about dividend distribution, don't care. Or the Reject Shop scheme meeting results in second court hearing, don't really care about that. Our company called LOC, Locate Technology, capital raise and treasury update. I might have a read of that, but you can see you have to scroll down and down and down to get to the next price sensitive announcement, which is from CMW Distribution Dividend. Okay, so there are other ways you can have a look at announcements. One of those is ComSec. In the tools section, company announcements, we have all the announcements that have been released via ASX, and this is a little bit nicer. Plus, you have filters, so you can just filter just all the market sensitive announcements. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So far today, 136 price sensitive announcements have been released, and a lot of times I just go through this, having a look at interestingly titled announcements. So, for instance, Microbar, Life Sciences, Strategic Investment and Equity Raise. Or if we go to the start of the day, because a lot of the more interesting announcements are released before trading began. And so what I'm talking about, interesting announcements, I am referring to trading updates. So for instance, Alcidion Group, guidance upgrade. This is on June 23, 2025. What else do we have? Close the loop, market update. These are sort of announcements I am looking for because they can send the share price down or up a fair bit. For instance, I know on this day, if I can find it, so I see the share price up 15% on a market guidance upgrade, but also on this day we saw what company is it? Or Shape Australia, a trading update, share price up 7.71%, obviously positive. We also saw Adairs release a negative trading update, share price down 19.7%. So I do find a lot of information can be realized just by going through announcements. You can understand a company much better just by going through announcements. Okay, so it's your comments. That's sort of self-explanatory, but if I go through just some of your recent comments. So Fishbowl talked about Obsidian. All I'm going to do now is try to find a company I don't know much about, which is going to be, just for instance, ShamGG just said Origin and Horizon look interesting, increase in volume, but haven't quite broken out. So just say, for instance, for this example, I'd never heard of or haven't done any research on Horizon, AZJ, and I read this comment and went, maybe I should have a closer look at this company. And I have done that on occasion. So I do find your comments to be quite useful most of the time. Yes, I do. That's absolutely true. Now on to articles. So probably my favorite is Livewire. I also get something I haven't mentioned. I do get a lot of emails that do have article links in them. But Livewire, I find a trove of information. They have a buy, hold, sell series, growth series, released a lot of really interesting articles. Here's one: buy, hold, sell 2 standout ASX names for financial year 26. So that could be a nice way to get ideas. What the experts are talking about. 6 ASX global stocks to rebalance your portfolio from bankers, miners, and deck. Another one is 5 ASX disruptors taking on the giants. So I do like this site as well. And you'll notice a few of the people featured on their buy, hold, sell series are also featured on Ausbiz The Core. That was the show I was trying to think of, not Your Money, Your Hold, whatever it's called. So here is Henny Jennings talking with, looks like Grady Wolf and someone else. And takes us to the last thing I use, Ausbiz. Now, I don't watch Ausbiz as much as I used to, simply because I've realized I don't get as many ideas from Ausbiz as I used to. So they have all these different shows. Looks like they want me to register for something. So series, the call is something I used to watch every single day, and I actually barely watch this anymore because I realize I know the presenters so well that when I look at the group of companies, so for instance, today we have Downer, Corporate Travel Management, PPT, which is Perpetual, IL, which is IDP Education, Rio Tinto, Whitehaven, Horizon, Cube, and AUB is AUB. A lot of those companies I already know a lot about, and I can tell what the presenter might think about these companies. So because I know these experts quite well. Sometimes they do have a technical analysis. Like last June, they had Michael Gable and David Novak, technical analysis experts. So sometimes I will watch these videos, but I used to get quite a few ideas, particularly when Sky Financial Channel had Your Money, Your Call. That's when I got a lot of ideas because back then I was more of a novice investor. This was going back well over 10 years ago, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. So I did get a lot of ideas from that. So I think this channel and this series could be very useful, particularly for novice investors. Okay, and that is all I have. That is all I have for you, answering this question about where do I get ideas? Where do I find potential companies? There are probably way more ways. Word of mouth is not one of them. I barely listen to people talking about companies other than the experts. Some people might suggest hot copper, something like that. I think that could be an idea. I used to be in hot copper way more than I am now. And right now I get zero ideas from hot copper. Zero ideas, because I very rarely go there these days. And I'm trying to think of other reasons or other ways I haven't really thought about right now. But that's the main reasons, particularly when it comes to ASX announcements. That's where I get the majority of my ideas. And that is how I find the majority of companies. Now, there is another way, which I just thought about right now. New IPOs. So I do look at a new IPO pages. Like small caps have a upcoming IPO list. So I do go through this on occasion just to see upcoming IPOs and the IPOs that have been. You can actually go back in time. You can go all the way back to 2017. Look at all the IPOs that were that year. And you can see a lot of those companies are no longer on the ASX. Anyway, so there could be a myriad of reasons you could use to find potential companies. But that is just some of the ways I do. Some of the ways I use. And by far, my favorite way is ASX announcements. Okay, if you have any questions, any thoughts, leave those in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I'm not a financial advisor. If you need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.